Hey guys, it's Debbie, and I hope y'all are doing well. I'm kind of doing a little behind the scenes art show and tell. I just got back with my husband from the opening night reception of Cinematic Devotion, and if you've been following along, I have been submitting art for the last several months to a local art center, and I had a piece that was chosen, and it is around the Breakfast Club. And so this particular event, I didn't really have to search too far for something appropriate. I always try to wear a theme that sort of goes with the art that I'm creating. And I will make a reel. Actually, I think I made a reel on one of the other platforms giving a sneak peek of this, but I'm not sure if I've posted it on here, but I was just going to show you guys how I was sort of channeling the Breakfast Club tonight. It was interesting because the theme was cinematic devotion, and we were supposed to show love and appreciation for some of the most iconic cult classic movies around. And it was interesting because the piece, hi, thanks for joining, the piece that I made around the Breakfast Club was sort of a last minute decision. Originally, I wanted to make a Breakfast Club piece, and I wasn't really sure, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I thought about putting into the piece to make it like a mixed media piece. And then I didn't do it because I wanted all these other pieces and I didn't have access to them. And so I started to make something else. And if you saw the clip that probably was right before this, I did something for Willy Wonka 1971. But at the last minute, about 2 days before the deadline, I'm like, I really, really need to get back to my original idea for this particular exhibition and go back to doing the Breakfast Club. And I'm so glad that I did, because the other piece was not chosen, but the Breakfast Club one was. And I will give you guys a little sneak peek. And then when I get the piece home, it was just delivered this week, and the opening night reception was tonight. And then it's on display for the next 2.5 weeks. I will actually physically show it to you and show you how I did it. But I am a huge fan of the Breakfast Club, so I am channeling some of the people here. I've got the t-shirt with everybody's name on it. I've got this to sort of channel Allison. I actually had kind of a bag on me. I might post some still pictures, because you never know when you might need to jam, and I have a bag full of snacks and have food. And this is a legit my vest from the 80s. And I was going to wear a jean jacket, or I was going to wear a different vest. And I decided I'm just going to go with this last minute. And then I had this little pin that says famous on it with lips. And the lips always make me think of Claire when she was putting on the, the lipstick. But I'm like, you know what? I'm putting it out there that maybe I will be famous someday. So I'm encouraging you guys to do that. But anyway, so I had done this little idea where I did this little sneak peek for people to try to guess what they wanted to do. So the red bandana was super iconic because it was around Bender's foot. So when I did the picture, which is all tiny little dots, it is cardstock, it is upcycled envelopes, and it is scrapbooking paper. I did the little red around the bottom of his ankle. And of course, the little 80s sunglasses were super iconic in the movie. Brian was wearing them in one of the scenes. And so I had similar sunglasses that I was wearing tonight. And so then I had this ribbon, which, if you recall, I think in Allison's bag of stuff, she had a ribbon, or Claire did. And she ended up, pulling her hair back off of her face, taking off some of her eye makeup, and then she was tying this big white ribbon in her hair. So that was kind of reminiscent of that. Well, then I thought about, I had these really cool little metallic lips that I think I bought these at the dollar store. I haven't used them. They were stickers. And I was thinking of using this on the canvas with the piece and painting it or making it look like she was putting on the lip gloss. I did not do that. But again, this was inspiration for that. And then this little crown, because they called her the princess. But if you remember in the movie, there was a sign that said vote look for prom queen. And I was thinking of kind of like putting it on here and then like putting the makeup in there. If you recall, they had the little eyebrow brush that Bender was using on his teeth, but then they ended up using the same one on Allison when they were doing her makeup. And when I laid out the other picture, I had put some little, screws out, because if you recall, one of the main lines was screws fall out all the time, the world's in a perfect place. So I did this thing where, if you're not familiar with it, if you go to Pinterest, it's kind of evolved over the years. And I'm loving this idea that I thought of a while back. I'm like, why don't they have this? And it was like, okay, well, obviously somebody else was thinking it. And if you haven't tried it and you're a creative, or even if you're wanting to do it like for a vision board, or you're like wanting to do it to like redecorate your room, there's a thing on there where you can make collages now, and they will do it where it will actually like go around the picture. So let's say I'm here and I had a picture of myself, and it would like go around and it would just be me, so that you wouldn't have like all this other background in there. So that was really cool. So I made like 2 or 3 of these with different images that I pulled off of Pinterest, and they were iconic scenes from the movie. They were iconic lines from the movie, and they were actually some other people's like maybe fan art and stuff like that. So I used all of that for inspiration, for the piece. And then I ended up, I don't even know where this idea came from. I do get a lot of divine downloads, and it was interesting. I saw a piece on a different site. There's the iconic dance scene in the library where they're all doing these different motions, and it was a picture that somebody else had made, kind of put that whole dance scene together. So I went through a whole process where I was able to kind of recreate that. I did the whole thing in colored pencil on tracing paper, and then I'm like, okay, now what? I'm like, now what am I going to do? Because originally I had thought about doing something on a black canvas, and that was already black, and it was about that same size. And I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? So I don't know how it came to me, but it did. And it was to hole punch the entire thing, meaning the outfits that they were wearing. So some of it's kind of textured like Bender's, flannel shirt, and like kind of some two-tone stuff, like for maybe like their skin, or different things like that. So these little dots kind of are similar to that. So it was interesting. So when we went to the opening night ceremony tonight, it was kind of like torrential rain here, because we're kind of in this thing where we might be getting a tropical depression. And they had art fairs set up outside where people could walk around at Art Walk. And unfortunately, like all that had to be disassembled. People's tents were blowing away. It was raining. It was really crazy. So my husband and I decided to get something to eat right away, because we wanted to get down there early. It's a Friday night, wanted to avoid traffic. He's been up since like 4:00 this morning. And so we wanted to, get there. So then we get there, and I'm going to suggest this to the people that maybe the artists wear name tags, because I'm like walking up to people saying, are you an artist? Like, do you have art here? Like, you look really artsy. I'm like literally telling people, like, you look like an artist. Do you have art here? And so it was interesting. We went there, and some themes were very reoccurring. So the curator of the museum, actually, I forgot to bring a piece to show you, but I made these little things a couple of months ago. I think I made a reel on it, and you might be able to go back and find it, but I made like calling cards, or like those square like business cards with coffee. And he had pieces that were humongous in a real specific group show that was downstairs in the big exhibit, but then he also had 2 that he made for this exhibit. And he did something with coffee stained, and then he used, I think, colored pencil and regular pencil, and he did a Breakfast Club one. So then there was my Breakfast Club one, his Breakfast Club one, and then there was another Breakfast Club one near mine, the real iconic picture at the end of the movie with John Bender, with his hand up, and then there was the words to the song around it, and it was like, the one when he was at the end of the movie out on the field. So that was interesting. And then, believe it or not, there's movies out there that I have not seen in their entirety because there's like so many movies out there. There was a lot of pieces around Fight Club, which I've never seen, and there was a lot of pieces around the one with John Travolta, with the dance scene, and I did not like Grease or, Saturday Night Fever, the other one with Uma Thurman. Anyway, so there was a couple of pieces around that. So that was like a really popular theme as well. And I find it interesting, and I'm kind of glad, because like, what if they had said, okay, there's no duplicates? Like, what if they had said, okay, we want cinematic devotion, but we want like this whole wide array of stuff, and we're not gonna like pick duplicates or something. So that was a really popular theme. One of the ladies that I met at one of the last shows did the Blues Brothers. That was super cool. I was hoping to run into her, but she maybe wasn't there yet. I think the event was going on till 10 and we got there early and we had already left. There was one of the girls that did something from that movie with Uma Thurman, and it was like the first one when you walked in, and I was like, wow, that's really great. And I ended up talking to her. So I'm like walking around, my husband's outside. I'm walking around and I'm like walking up to people and I'm asking them, are you an artist? Do you have stuff on display? And it's interesting because one of the ladies that I follow, Jen Gottlieb, she's like, believe it or not, I'm kind of an introvert. And she's like, when I go to a networking event or I go to some sort of like, event or something like that, like I'm going to some, talk, or I'm giving a talk, or I'm going somewhere. She's like, I always go in mind with a goal of like what I want to do before like I can leave. And I didn't necessarily go in with a goal per se, like I want to meet X amount of people before I leave, but I did go in with the intentional goal that I wanted to try to meet some other artists. And there's a poster that they put up of all of the people that attend. And then, what I've done the last couple of shows is I take a screen picture of it or whatever, and then I try to find these artists on social media. And I want to give a shout out to them. So I maybe take a picture of their picture with their name next to it, so I can go to their social media page and say, wow, I really liked your picture. It was awesome. And I had a picture in the show, and, I would love to follow you. And so I'm walking up to a couple of girls, one that had the Uma Thurman picture. I think she had actually two, now that I'm thinking about it. They were on opposite sides of the gallery, but super cool. They were both orange. They were really cool. And she's got like pink hair. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love your hair. I'm like, my sister, has been a cosmetologist for years. My family was in the beauty industry and the wellness industry. And she's like, oh my gosh, you really like it? I'm like, yeah, I love it. And she's like a teenager, like, she's in college. And she's like, I just did it tonight. I'm like, well, it's really cool. And I'm like, are you an artist? And she said, yes. So we got into a conversation, and I said, have you had any other art on display here before? And she said, yes, I have at this other show last spring, like a year ago. And I'm like, oh, I just started like submitting stuff last October. So I did not know or see about that show. And I encouraged her to submit stuff for the upcoming dark arts exhibition. I said, I got in on a fluke with this dark arts. I hadn't even planned to submit something. I did. It was chosen. And then that's like led me into this whole new thing where I've had other stuff. I had the dark arts. I had the portrait with my muse Walt. I had 3 pieces in the pollution or solution. And then I had 1 piece chosen for this one, which was cinematic devotion. And I've already started 1 piece for the dark arts. So then I started talking to some other people. So there's this really cool picture, and this wasn't dark arts, but it was cinematic devotion. And there was this picture of Elvira. And so these people come in, and I see them downstairs, and I'm like, they look like celebrities or rock stars or whatever. And I'm like, I wonder like if they're artists because they look artsy. And so I'm seeing them like taking pictures, by this picture. And I'm like, oh, are you the artist? And she's like, no, I'm the model. Like, I'm the person that was photographed. And I'm like, oh. So then I says to who I find out is her husband, I'm like, oh, are you the artist? And they're like, no, a friend of ours are. I'm like, well, are you in a rock band? Because he totally looked like he was Michael Sweet from Stryper. And I'm like, you look like you're in an art, artsy kind of a thing, or like a musician. I'm like, are you a musician? He's like, no, I'm a lawyer. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, she was telling me she was from New York, and I'm like, I'm from Chicago. And she's like, I'm just like, this is my first visit at this art museum. My friend took the picture of me. I was the model for the picture. I said, oh, you do modeling? And she said, yeah. She's like, but I really want to get into doing some art. I'm like, you should totally like do something, for this dark arts thing that's upcoming, because that's the next thing they have on the schedule. So I kind of told her about that. So then I see these other two girls that are standing there. They look kind of artsy. And I said, oh, are you guys artists here? I said, do you guys have, anything on display here? And they're like, no, but, I'm like, I write poetry and I like art and I really need to get back into it. And then the other girl's like, well, I like, photography and dance. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I said, you guys should totally like submit something for this. I said, when I did the dark arts one, which again, I hadn't even planned to be in, there was a poem that went with it. And I said, when I brought it in with the curator, I framed it. I didn't submit it with the piece because there really wasn't an option to do that online. But I said, I have a poem that went with this. And I said, would you be willing to display it with it? And he's like, sure. And so, basically at that show, there was a little girl with her dad. She was probably like 10 years old, and they were looking at my thing and they were reading the poem, and the girl's like, wow, I didn't know you could submit poetry. I said, well, I didn't either. I said, but if you write poetry, you should like totally, consider submitting it. So I told these other girls, I said, I've seen very, very varied, let's say varied types of pieces of art where there's been stuff that's been on mannequins, there's been stuff that's made out of clay, there's been stuff that's made out of upcycled and recycled parts, there's stuff that's been made on wood, there's stuff that's been made with found objects. I'm like, you guys should totally, put something in the next show. So then another girl that I met, she's kind of walking around, kind of like we all are, like we don't know who the artists are. Like, are these the guests? Are these the artists? Are they friends of the artist? And I walk up to her again, trying to be social, demented and sad, but social. And I walk up to her and I say, are you an artist? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so what piece is yours? And she shows me. It was a movie that I wasn't super familiar with, but I recognized one of the characters, which was Kate Winslet. And it was, a really good rendition of that. And I said, wow, that's really cool. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I just found out about this. I said, oh, are you an artist? And I think she said, I can't remember if it was her or somebody else, that she worked in a bakery. But anyway, that's a whole different kind of creativity. But anyway, so she says, yeah. She goes, I found out that this deadline was like in a week. And she's like, I really, really wanted to do this picture. And she said, I did it in a week. I said, well, it's amazing, because I think it was acrylic. It was pretty big. It was two people in the picture. And I said, that's amazing. She goes, yeah, this is my first show. I go, yeah, it's very exciting. I said, my first time in this show was just a couple of months ago. And I said, I'm getting to know some of the other artists. And I said, that's a really cool piece. And I said, sometimes, we work better under pressure. Like I said, with me, I had the idea to do the Breakfast Club thing, put it on the back burner because I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then like 2 days beforehand, I like came up with something and, didn't really spend that much time on it. And it was super simple. My husband's like, keep it simple. And it was chosen. And the one artist was like, oh, is that kind of like pointillism? And I go, I kind of guess. I said, I haven't really up until recently done a lot of art since like I was in college, and she's in college. So she's like learning all these different techniques, and it was really neat. And then I, found out one thing about the curator, which I didn't know. He had many pieces on display, but specifically for the downstairs downtown exhibition. And I knew, he had done a lot of different things, but what I was fascinated with was that he has experience doing, what do you call it, like movie makeup, which I would have loved to have done. When I go get my hair done at the cosmetology school, anytime I see anybody who likes hair and makeup, I'm always like, we live near Orlando, we live near Disney and Universal. You should totally get into doing like theater work, or you should get into doing, makeup at the theme parks, or do something like that. But anyway, so he has experience in doing like stage and performance, and has film experience. I guess I don't know if he's acted or if he's been behind the scenes, but he has experience doing like makeup. And there was that show that was on years ago that I was fascinated with called Face Off, where people were making like prosthetic things and these elaborate costumes for different themes, for people that would be wearing them like for movies or something like that. And I had posted something on social media the other day trying to encourage people to do something, and I don't even remember what it was, but I was saying that, I had experience back in the day building floats. I had experience making props for stage crew and like stuff for like musicals and for what would you say, like, variety shows or plays or something like that, and that I had experience doing window decorating. So it's interesting because like when I got out of school doing art, it literally was the 80s. And if you're just joining me, this is literally like I would have worn this to college in the 80s, this vest. And because I actually did. And, I had no idea whatsoever, like what kind of art I would be doing. I've even said to my parents recently, like it was never on, sorry, I'm not going to take anybody live right now, but I never expected to be showing art in a exhibition. And kind of like speaking of the Brat Pack, Andrew McCarthy has that book out now. Every time I see Ferris Bueller, I love that. And every time I go to this art gallery, it always makes me think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because I got to grow up in Chicago, getting to go to the Art Institute and stuff like that, Museum of Contemporary Art and all that. So down here in Florida, that's like, at least where I live, like the closest thing to it. And it also reminds me of another movie, which I absolutely love, Some Kind of Wonderful, again, shout out to the 80s. And, where the main character paints the picture and then it ends up in the museum. So I'm always kind of like channeling something, and I have kind of found that most of the pieces, except for the first dark arts piece that I did, are all pop culture centric. And I think everything just sort of like came together. And so the one that I'm thinking of for the dark arts exhibition that's coming up, they want an artist statement this time, and they want to know how it relates to dark art. And I'm thinking it's definitely going to be around mental health, because I'm a mental health advocate and nationally certified mental health first aider for youth and adults. And I want it to be around that and some other little things like that. But I never thought that I would be showing art in a museum or anything like that. I know my husband wants me to sell everything. I've become so attached. I might try to, actually print physical prints of stuff and then see about selling it that way. But as far as selling the actual pieces, I've become attached. But speaking of which, the other exhibition that was downstairs coinciding with this one was called The Artful Eight. And it was an exhibition that 8 artists have been working on for a year based on the number 8 or the infinity symbol. And it's starting in August, which is the 8th month. And 8-8 is what they call the Lionsgate portal. And then this year, the number 2024 equals 8. So it's 888. So this one lady that I was talking to, that turns out about a year ago had her own exhibition upstairs, and I did not go because I didn't know about it or wasn't really like in the realm of things that I am now. And it was very interesting. She had 3 pieces, all with like the number 8 in it somewhere. The first three were very, very big and big. Well, they were all big, but big meaning like vibrant, like super vibrant. And then the other three were also really big, but they were pastel colors. And she said, when I do art in general, I channel through music, because she said, when I listen to music, I see colors and shapes. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I'm like, I worked in the holistic wellness industry for 23 years. My family had a wellness practice for 17 years. You know, I'm totally into all this, like, you know, natural stuff, art, music, healing, you know, the infinity symbol, the whole deal. So I got to meet her. And, you know, it was a really cool experience. Now, the exhibit's going on for a couple of weeks. This particular museum is not open on the weekends because they do a lot of private events like weddings and stuff like that. I'm hoping that maybe in 2 weeks during Music Walk, my husband and I will get to go down again, maybe. I'm not really sure. But I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to speak life into other creatives, and that I took the initiative to introduce myself when I saw people taking pictures near certain artwork, or kind of standing near artwork, or they looked kind of artsy, or they were like really dressed up, or they were whatever. I was, you know, took it upon myself to introduce these people, to myself and vice versa. And then I'm going to follow them on social media, because I'm all about wanting to give shout outs to other people that are doing creative things on any platform, whether they're making videos, they're making reels, they have a book out. Speaking of which, I actually have a book called Don't You Forget About Me that I bought years ago that's all about John Hughes and all about the John Hughes movies. And fun fact, I grew up in the western suburbs of Chicago. So I love that all of those iconic John Hughes movies and others, you know, were filmed in Chicago. The particular high school where that was filmed was no longer being used, but the library where pretty much 90% of the movie took place was too small in the real school. So they actually built the library, okay, for the library scenes of the Breakfast Club inside of their gymnasium. Okay, which is super cool. And I just read the other day that at the end of filming, John Hughes gave all of the main characters, and maybe some of the other characters, I'm not sure, a piece of the banister, which was very popular in the movie because that is where they kind of did the dance scene, and then it, you know, had the stairs leading up to that. I love all that. If I wasn't literally doing, you know, what I'm doing right now, or if I didn't end up doing visual display merchandising, or if I didn't end up doing, the thing that I did in the wellness industry, I would have followed through with stuff that I did in high school, which would have been like stage crew and making props. I got to do that where I made props when I was doing visual display merchandising. The piece that I showed the other day that didn't get chosen, which was the Willy Wonka one, the full live, that was only a clip that I showed in case you didn't see it live. I put a little clip on here, but the full video I saved and I put it over on YouTube. And that one I was saying, because I was a wedding coordinator for a really long time and did like other parties and stuff like that, that would be amazing because it was like 2D and it was like big, and it was you could touch things on it, meaning that it had stuff on it, would be great for like a selfie station if you were having like some sort of a themed event, and or for like some photo op thing if you were hosting something. And I said, that one could be easily changed from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to Candyland, or by tweaking it a little bit, you could have made it like Alice in Wonderland. So anyway, I hope that this kind of resonated with you guys. If you're just jumping on, I'm going to get off. I was doing my cinematic devotion, little behind the scenes about the Breakfast Club, which was the piece that I had chosen for this upcoming art exhibition. I will post a clip of this, and then I will save the entire thing in its entirety, and I'll post it over on YouTube. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I want you guys to not only don't you forget about me, but don't forget about other people that are creatives. Give them a shout out, like their stuff. I just did a thing the other day on one of the other platforms about something else, and they were saying that the average adult, and I'm not talking children, the average adult's attention span on social media, or I think even in real life, is like 2.9 seconds, which is crazy. And I've also seen myself doing that where I'll swipe through really quick, but I will at least maybe tap and give a heart, or if I really like it, I will make a comment because I really think people appreciate that. And they also said that if you have a bunch of followers, even like Facebook friends, or you've got like followers on different platforms, because of the algorithms and because we have so many friends and there's just like so much going on social media, that basically only 8% of the people that you would consider fans, friends, followers actually see the stuff in their feed. And the other thing was that if you're trying to promote a product, a service, something that you're doing, that people need to have approximately like 8 to 10 hours of exposure to you or your stuff. So like if you go live or you're posting reels or you're posting little mini videos, they need to come in contact with you almost a dozen times and hear like X amount of, several hours of you to feel comfortable, not necessarily to follow you, but comfortable to maybe, buy something from you or collaborate with you, or, maybe you have an online store or something like that. So those are just some little extra tips that I wanted to give. But anyway, thank you guys so much for, the likes, the shares, the comments. If you have anything that you want me to, display as far as things, pictures, or content, I've been kind of using this platform. I started out kind of like, I think, using it for food, and then I was doing a lot of other stuff. But now that I'm going live, I'm trying to kind of stick with the whole art thing, but then just add some other things that I think people might find interesting. So anyway, you all have a wonderful evening, and thanks for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Bye.